No. The first on our agenda is a 3-minute talk for anyone that has anything to say. Thank you. Sean. Okay, just make sure you're here. Could we have a review and approval of the minutes of the regular meeting, November 19th? All in favor? I guess we don't have to do that, right? No. Okay, the financial position. We did. Everybody was there.
Was there a motion?
Yes,
That's
her
strange.
and him.
Okay, thank you.
Morning, everyone. Happy holidays. Do my best to go through our financial activity as quickly as possible here for a full meeting. And we have on your tablets, you should have the more detailed financial statements, and we'll also have the PowerPoint presentation up here for what I'll be covering. We're going over the cash inflows and outflows for the authority. This is the month of November we'll be covering, and the first tab on your tablets as well as up here will be the operating account activity, where we begin the month with $4.7 million of cash on hand. For our receipts, we have our monthly lease income we're bringing in from Virginia Beach National, over $26,000, a portion of it being related to the operations rent, as well as a separate component for capital maintenance that the authority retains. We also earn a little bit of interest on our accounts, over $3,000 coming in the month. For our disbursements, the ones I'll touch upon is the engineering fees, over $24,000 being expended to Kimley Horn for work being done in the months of August and September related to corporate landing. We also had our final progress payment to the external auditors who conducted the financial audit for last fiscal year. That's CLA, over $14,000 being paid to them, so that vendor's been paid in full at this point. I also want to touch upon, we had a payment related to Rudy Loop back in February of this year. The authority approved the use of some funding for, we were calling it the placemaking or space making being done out there at Rudy Loop. In this case, we had a payment for an interior wall mural that was put up there. So that approved payment, or the payment for this funding comes from that approval, again, done back in February. So that makes up the majority of what I'll be covering for November. We end the month $4,728,020 in operating funding on hand. Happy to answer any questions we have on the operating account. If not, I'll move to the incentive program, a bit more activity. In covering the month of November, we begin the month over $4.6 million of actual cash on hand from various incentive projects. We had a drawdown from the city's appropriations of $500,000 brought in, and you'll see that appearing on your cash receipts, as well as an interest income being earned just under $1,000 for the checking account we maintain. For our disbursements, we had several awards I have listed here. The first three being done under Part A of the incentive program, payments to LifeNet, Point One USA, and Linkhorn Associates, all being partial payments for either capital investment that they made within the city, or in the case of the first two, also workforce expansion for additional hirings they've had to increase their FTE count. We also had a Part C, which is an APZ1 award payment going out to DAO Emerging Technologies as partial payment for the capital investment they made within the city. Below that, what we call Part D, any engineering fees that were expended for city initiatives, over $123,000 for projects related to the Dome site, Historic Kempsville, Amphitheater, Bonnie Road site, the Virginia Beach Convention Center, the hotel at TCC, London Bridge Commerce Center, as well as Princess Anne Commons outgoing work. Then moving to the bio initiative, some expenditures related to that program. We had our monthly rent we're paying on the accelerator going out just under $10,000 for that one monthly line item, as well as some engineering fees related to the bio park being constructed out there. So we have cash on hand, $4,679,394, and we reconcile that in this final slide to the available funding in the program overall. We've adjusted your receivables, which is the major adjustment being the appropriation, us drawing down the cash. We've adjusted your payables and commitments for any awards that were paid out or were approved at last month's meeting. So we have an estimation of available incentive funding as of the end of November, $3,196,776. And again, that's available incentive funding as of the end of November. Happy to answer any questions anyone has on the incentive programs and flows and
Thank you.
outflows.
Any questions?
Thank
Thanks for
you
the
very
wonderful
much.
job you do for us.
Thank you.
Okay, who was the amphitheater? Next, we're having an amphitheater improvements for 2020. I hope everyone realizes what a great opportunity the amphitheater has been for the Development Authority and for new members. It's so successful, and we're really happy to have it. And thank you for telling us about.
Yes, good morning. I've had the great opportunity last month to tour the facility with the general manager, Tabitha Webster. And they have identified 5 projects as part of our shareable capital improvements. So the parking lot, the brew house conversion, ADA ramps to the pavilion seating, 2 backup generators, and the merchandise stand. So the parking lots, they have completed all LED lights in parking lots B and D, and this year or next year they'll be replacing the ones on parking lot E, with a total projects of 77,043 VBDA portion.
What's the projected savings for those?
Excuse me?
What's the projected savings for those new ones? Gonna pay for themselves?
Well, they've had they're going to have their 25th anniversary. Their sales.
Let me jump in, just answer that question. We don't have that data, but we're happy to get it for you.
So also they're reconverting the brew house. The good thing is that they're keeping the slab, and the previous conversions they have done 2 in 2018 and 2019. The next one is the ADA ramp to the ceilings, and as you can see, they're like wooded, and the wood had rotten, so they're gonna reconvert them to concrete. Last one, they have 2 generators that they were original to the venue build, so they're gonna replace those as well. And finally, the merchandise plaza stand. They already also have replaced one in 2019, and this one will be replaced next year. I've added one more slide to show you what we have spent last year and where we're spending this year. Any questions?
Questions?
And that was me rock and rolling on the stage with no audience. Thank
It
you.
is such a fantastic theater for us. I wonder, would it ever be possible to have, we talk about the parking lot, like HRT from Town Center or from the ocean front, or do we have that now? Oh, Hampton Roads Transit.
I believe
Bus.
they run shuttles and such for,
Do they?
for
Okay, I didn't-
concerts in the summer.
Okay. I knew they did to the ocean front. I
The
didn't know
ocean
they
front,
did there.
I don't know that.
But because that Princess Anne Road is very crowded.
It is.
Thank you again, we appreciate it. Okay, approval of the Sportsplex, is it a pond subdivision?
going to become
and
a pond.
And transfer to the city of a new parcel, Lansdowne Road project. Laura Murphy.
Good morning.
Morning.
Right now, the Development Authority owns this parcel in red, which contains 1.5 ponds. The pond we're speaking of is this pond right here in the lower corner. It is required for the Lansdowne Road project. We're improving Lansdowne Road to 4-lane undivided. And it is also needed for the Rosemont Road project for water quality credits. Some history. The City of Virginia Beach subdivision created with the Lansdowne Center Road project in 2012. And then in 2016, we began a level 1 Sportsplex Pond to be constructed with the Lansdowne Road project. In February of 2018, the subdivision containing this pond was conveyed to the Development Authority by deed. And we are now asking for a subdivision plat to take that pond back out and use it for the project. And there is developable land, and it's bound on 3 sides by stormwater maintenance access roads, and on the bottom by Lansdowne Center Way. And the pond subdivision is outlined in red, and it's approximately 6.5 acres of an 11-acre development. So that we request that you move forward with the approval of the subdivision plat and authorize the transfer back to the city for approximately 6.5 acres.
Questions?
And Madam Chair, this is just, when we created the parcel for what is now Innovation Park, this is just a piece that's on the other side of the road. The city transferred it to you. They're just asking, so to meet the city stormwater needs, that you authorize transferring it back.
So Indian giving.
Well, so what we would say though is this does, as it relates to the viability of other commercial development in the area, this is a real benefit to everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Your motion?
So moved.
Bill?
I'm sorry, I have a question first. Maybe it's a little outside the purview of this particular discussion, but I just don't really fully understand the whole stormwater credit thing. So you mentioned earlier in your comments that part of this was to allow for development of the Rosemont Road project via credits.
Yes.
So I guess there's some type of
Yes,
credit thing there.
what we plan on doing is upgrading this to a level 1 or a level 2 pond. Right now, it's really, it's an old pond, and it hasn't been to the BMP clearinghouse level 1 or level 2, which you get water quality and water quantity. And the water quality would be improved for this pond.
If this pond is encumbered with credits for a Rosemont Road project, which
Yes.
is down the road some,
Yes.
how does that, maybe it gets back to what you were saying, Taylor, how does that impact our developable land in the biopark,
So
which is right down the road? Do we need
That's
credits for that?
No.
So, and actually, yeah, it's across the street, and no, we do not. We're actually building regional stormwater detention facilities to carry, basically to carry the uses in the park. And so a great example of that is the road that's under construction now. We talk about it as the road, but there's also a stormwater detention facility that's going to drain, give or take, 58 acres of the park that's being constructed as part of that project. So we would tell you that we are not impacted by this development.
Any other questions?
Motion, do we need a second?
Alex, sir?
There's a motion, we need a second.
I know.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you so much, Laurie.
Thank you.
Let's see, phase 1, Mr. Couch.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the authority. Happy
Thank-
holidays to everybody.
Thank you, same to you.
Real quick, I'm going to run you through phase 1 of the fee agreement with Facility Logics. Just a quick reminder, we're working with Facility Logics on the ongoing development of our Virginia Beach Bioaccelerator and Convergence 2. The principals associated with it are Pat Larrabee and Lynn Cooper, president and project manager with Facility Logics. And as you may remember, the last time we were here in October, we had briefed you on 3 different agreements that we'll be working with them on. One is the consultation service agreement, also the fee development agreement. This is 2 phases. We're talking about phase 1 here today, and also the ongoing property management agreement. So we're talking today about phase 1 of the fee development agreement. As I mentioned, that's for 5,700 square feet of space in Convergence 2. And then for the further development of the bioaccelerator space, it's a 7-month agreement starting January 1. The fee associated with the consultation piece is for the first 3 months, $10,857. And for the subsequent 4 months is $7,400, and also includes travel expenses as needed up to $12,000. And the agreement would supplant any ongoing monthly charges with the consultation service agreement. What we're looking for them to do for us is the ongoing planning, programming, design, procurement of equipment, also the procurement of architects, engineers, and contractors for the development of the space. They will work with us as in terms of who they select for these various services, and it'll also help us develop a budget. That's why we're doing it in phases, so we can get to the budget development piece. So with what we're here for today is to talk about the actual architectural and engineering services required, and we need that ongoing work so we can start doing the budget development. And back one, please. And that price, or is it not to exceed $150,000 for those services without having to come back to the authority, and economic development staff would work with them and selected architects moving forward. And as I mentioned, we will have ongoing phase 2 development, which would be the ongoing construction, equipment purchases associated with the development of the space, and then also to the ongoing property management agreement. So we're here today to ask the authority to allow the chair to enter into the agreement for the fee development agreement phase 1 with Facilities Logics as outlined, and we will bring budgets and future agreements back to the authority as those get developed. Be glad to try to answer any questions.
I've asked Mr. Burton to work on this because, he's had a lot of experience in healthcare,
Absolutely.
and so,
Love to have you. Sure.
questions? And Dr. Brown has also.
Yeah. And Madam Chair, before we vote, I'd like to, the owner of the building that we have, the owner of the space that we are leasing is here with us today. Just would like to recognize Mr. Cecil Cutchins, Sister Properties in the Convergence Center. Want to thank him for working with our team on pulling this together. And this is there's not a lot of precedent for building out a bio lab in Virginia Beach, and so we appreciate his team's willingness to work with us on finding a road forward here.
He'll be very proud of it once it's up and running and have the newest, okay, we've had that, right? Vote. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
In favor.
Yeah, there was
Lisa,
a motion.
Okay,
Okay, I moved.
and I thought Joe was seconded.
Who was the second there?
Joe Strange.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I'd ask you before. So. Request approval of resolution authorizing an award of $300,000, excuse me, $300,000 for priority title and escrow. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, members of the authority. We wanted to bring this matter before you, given its exciting aspect of a local company expansion here in Virginia Beach. Priority Title and Escrow is requesting an incentive assistance to help them expand their headquarters operations here in the city, and the company is represented this morning by Mike Steyer, one of the principals of the company who's joined us this morning for this process. But as normal protocol, we'll run through a few pieces of important information, namely disclosures by the applicant and the current building owner that the company is relocating to. And as you'll note, priority title and escrow, important business associates in accounting, construction, finance, legal services, and real estate are all names that are recognizable here in the city. The next is the current owner's information and some of their disclosures so that we're all aware of who these two entities are dealing with on an everyday basis. About the company, they were founded in 2005, and obviously have been in here, been in business since 2005, and have been relocated, has been relocated to 607 Lynn Haven Parkway for 3 years, previously located at another address, but plans to purchase a 641 Lynn Haven Parkway where they're located now in the first or second quarter of next year. Is that right, Mike?
The purchase of 641?
Yes,
That'd be January 2nd.
January 2nd, so as planned. And consideration was given to expanding some of these operations outside of the city, but elected to expand those operations in Virginia Beach, and that's about the time we began working with them to convince them that this is a better path toward their future success. Again, an aerial view of Lynn Haven Parkway, pointing out the building, many of you may recognize the property that has been there for some time previously as a different financial institution. Some project summary information, interior construction renovation is estimated to be about $450,000. Furnitures and fixtures, another $300,000. Real estate acquisition, about $3.1 for a total of $3.8. Plus, for their investment, they expect to create new full-time equivalent positions of about 200, which will complement their existing workforce of about 109. The average new wage is expected to be approximately $60,000 a year. So the request on the part of Priority Title and Escrow is a grant of $300,000 to help them fund this expansion and acquire their workforce, which we continue to work with them on acquisition of those folks, along with the Virginia Economic Development Partnership that is helping them as well.
Thank you. Questions? Motion?
No question, sorry.
Yes, sir.
How do employees that are acquired through acquisition, if there were to be an acquisition during this time period, how do those new employees acquired through acquisition come into this calculation?
It would, so we would generally count them, assuming they were from out of market. So assuming they were new to our market, we would generally count them.
New to our market, defined specifically as Virginia Beach?
That's correct.
So an acquisition that included employees from within Virginia Beach would not count towards the new employee total?
Sorry.
So any acquisition would not count employees currently located in Virginia Beach if an acquisition were to take place during this time period? Just it's a 200 job jump for 36-month periods.
The current policy gives us discretion in that space. We could certainly write the clawback to focus specifically on new to Virginia Beach employees.
Okay.
And if that is the direction from the board, the awards are always given at the director's discretion, so if that's what your direction is, there we go.
For me, I think that's an important component.
Thank you.
Taylor, it's incremental, right? As they bring on the jobs, then.
That's correct. This is what we love about the jobs portion of the EDIP. It's performance based. The job has to be created, has to exist, and the company will provide proof that had happened. So yes.
And then the clawback is if the job doesn't stay for a certain number of years.
That is correct. The company doesn't say.
Other questions? Motion?
The jobs have to remain, when the company
Yes.
stay with it, they can't shrink from 200 to 150. Where's the clawback?
There's 3 year, 1 year, 12 months. So yeah, the job's got to be on the books for 12 months.
The company needs to stay for 5 years.
The company for 5 years, job on the books for 12 months.
Got any other questions? Motion?
So moved.
Second by, Lisa, and did you make the motion, didn't you? Okay, thank you. Did you, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Would you like to say something? We're really happy and thank you for being here. And
I didn't
just-
anticipate that, but I
Well,
really,
no, yeah, but we're happy to have you. We're excited
appreciate
about it.
Look forward to continuing to grow jobs for GDP and really again thankful that Charlie's worked so hard
Oh, he has.
to go through this whole process with us. And again, thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
We're great.
Thanks very much.
Okay. Okay, the next one is Ray. That's the one you wanted. Did you want to pull it? Land sale option and with renewals for corporate landing. That's the one you wanted to go.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of
Yes,
the
thank
authority.
you.
Happy holidays to everyone. This morning, I'd like to present to you a project, Kitty Hawk Wind LLC. They are part of AvenGrid Renewables, and AvenGrid is a leading sustainable energy company. They do currently $32 billion in assets, and they operate in 24 states throughout the country, 6,500 employees overall, with several business lines and power utility. They own and operate 7 gigawatts of electricity capacity, and they are planning on building a offshore wind farm right near our border off the coast of Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. You see there the disclosures. The parent company, as I mentioned, is AvenGrid. Parker Poe out of Raleigh does their legal work. You see their engineers, surveyors, agents, and their accounting is self-prepared by their parent company. They're building electrical non-public utility substation next to a major distribution line. With the wind turbine off the coast, again, they have to connect to the grid. As everyone well knows, that Kitty Hawk, on the land side there's very little infrastructure to carry that kind of power. So Virginia Beach is the logical site for them to come in to connect to the grid, to put the infrastructure, and also from a standpoint of workforce, a majority of the workforce of this project would be basically hired and utilized here from Virginia Beach and Hampton Roads, because we have certainly the skilled tradesmen that have the skills here due to shipbuilding and another type of similar activities that certainly the Outer Banks doesn't have. They're requesting up to 30 acres in Corporate Landing Park. They would like an option to purchase the property. The estimated direct investment of this specific project is $70.4 million. And we talked with the Commissioner of Revenue's office, and they anticipate revenue to the city from this is about $600,000 per year direct from this opportunity. This is just one part of the overall project, as I mentioned. They also will be doing a cable run, as you'll see in a minute where that comes in, and they will also have to have an operations facility to be able to service the facility off the coast. Also, the entire project, which is certainly going to bring benefits to our region, is about $5.6 billion to $8.5 billion. And as you know, we've talked in the past about the Dominion Energy project, so this one could be a little bit larger than the Dominion Energy project that's directly off our coast. As you see, there's the site, and where it will come into Virginia Beach. They're anticipating Sandbridge as a particular landing site. So it's not that far, to get to our ports and access our capabilities from this site, and certainly that's why they are looking and planning on utilizing the assets and resources in our community. You'll see from this graphic that it'll land in Sandbridge. The power cables will proceed down Nimmo Parkway and then up General Booth Boulevard to Corporate Landing. The site that we've been talking with them about, negotiating with, is in Corporate Landing. As you see, it is, here's Corporate Landing Parkway right here. And so this site is off the road, and it has to be near a distribution line, a major distribution line. And again, that serves that purpose right there. So at this point, I'd like to turn the presentation over to my colleague, Isan, to provide more information on this project. Thank you.
Morning again, Madam Chair, members of the authority. So, why corporate landing? There were several critical options that were identified and analyzed for the point of interconnect that is very, very critical to the success of the overall project. They look at potential landfalls and the routes, the distances. They focus on avoiding any conflicts with military, environmental, identify the capacity of the electrical infrastructure, and the routes, of course, construction access, and the distance and its complexity. Please. So there was a very high level of evaluation of 15 sites along the high voltage transmission line system. They look at the size, the access to the transmission line, the availability of the land, adjacent land uses. They don't want to be near residential. Construction access, and the distance from the beach, and the cable routes. And they have rated all those 15 sites with either favorable, likely, fatally flawed, or very risky. So they went through a very, very thorough evaluation of all those 15 sites, and got all their pros and cons to finally get to basically the corporate landing, which is adjacent to high voltage transmission lines and developed, compatible with adjacent land uses, minimal residential exposure, access to Sandbridge landfall via public right-of-way, which is very important. They try not to deal with the private, and access for the construction via major thoroughfare. So we've worked on the option and the real estate purchase and sales agreement. We didn't want, of course, to have the site sitting empty for 5 or 10 years, but we understand that because this is a green energy project and it takes a long time for the federal permitting process, and so we came up with this basically terms we have negotiated, and we feel confident that this would work. 5-year renewable. If there is any movement in the site, then it would automatically extend to another 5 years, and that they have to submit their construction and operation plan. If not, then they have to come back and renegotiate with the VBDA. We have also, purchase price would be $200,000 per acre, and we also have added an option. What is it called? An option annual payment of for 2.5%, which is like $120,000 annually, that could go through the purchase price, and have a $20,000 non-refundable.
I have a question. Well, I have a lot of questions, but how far or how close are they to having their lease with the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management for the offshore wind piece of it?
When I went through that permitting process, it's very, very complicated. But the thing is, like, they have a queuing system. It takes time. They pretty much have everything, and they have to check all their items in the application. And one of them is control of the land. They're supposed to hear sometimes like the first week or the first 2 weeks of January to hear back something, and they'll go from there.
And so thank you, Isan. That's exactly right. So, sort of quick summary is we can't speak to how long it will take them to obtain the permit. However, we know that they're on a January 17 milestone, and if they don't have control of the real estate, they miss that milestone and fall to the back of the queue. Whereas right now they're at the top of the queue, and so we're trying to help them get through this option so that they can demonstrate control of the real estate and stay in line.
And I think the 5-year option is okay, but I think essentially giving up control for 10 years, I still have a lot of heartburn. And even if at 5 years they have to show, and I talked to Alex about tightening the language, not only do they have to submit, but they have to submit a complete application.
Yes.
And it would be good to see some milestones.
Yes.
Because essentially, in that, we're talking about a 10-year option
Yes.
period. We have no ability to terminate during that 10-year option period, and that is still a big concern. 5 years, understandable, but to go that additional renewal term and have it be automatic and have us not have any termination right is, I mean, that's a lot of land. If you go back to the slide that shows corporate landing, that's a big chunk of corporate landing, and for us to give up control more or less completely for 30 or for 10 years over what happens to that 30 acres is.
Totally agree, but two things. So we have, yes, with Alex, we have discussed this. I mean, we had a lot of back and forth about that particular point. And they're gonna have to show us the milestones, they're gonna have to show us several things. But personally, I feel like the reassuring part in all of this is that they have the experience, that they have done that they have done this or gone through this process many times before, and they're very confident that they have checked off all their list, and the only needed part is the control of the land.
And
So this is not all new to them.
something else we would offer. We agree that we need a tight definition of what demonstrates initiation of construction and performance that would get them to the renewal point. The thing that gives us some comfort in this space is that a number of the tax incentives that make this project possible expire in 26. So if we're not making meaningful progress 3 years in, I think we'll see this, I think we'll know that this is going to go away. Because if they're, one, getting through the queue is problematic, but as we lay out, sort of as we were trying to get our hands around the risk of understanding what it means to be in this for 10 years, we saw the milestones that they had to hit just to stay in the queue. And I'm looking at it thinking that if we're not coming out of the ground in 4 years, and by that I mean they've spent healthy 8-figure and probably approaching 9-figure sums of money at that point that can be demonstrated and proven, they're out and so are we. But the reason for the extension was to build all 3 phases of this. It's going to take we think the better part of a decade, and so they need the ability to control the property for that amount of time. The reason for the money that they're escrowing is if you look at the amount of money that we're escrowing, my hope is that we get to a point 4 years out where it just makes business sense for them to take down the rest of the parcel and be done. But today we're just, like I say, we're just trying to make sure they can stay in the queue to keep going. But agree with you.
If I might add one more point that I haven't mentioned. So basically inside the fence, we're gonna have basically here either 1 or 2 substations, and here we're gonna have the switch yard. which is going to be connected to Dominion Energy Grid, and it's going to be owned by Dominion Energy Grid. And when I'm talking to Craig, he did mention that by that time, like prior to the 5 years, they're going to have some sort of agreement with Dominion Energy, and that also would be like show us that they are on the right path.
We spoke briefly on it last time we reviewed about the milestones. If I'm not mistaken, they're already out there surveying, correct? You know,
That's right. You have a right of entry agreement, yes, sir.
yeah, I've seen it. So, no, I mean in the ocean. And
They are, yes.
they're
Yes.
already spending a significant amount of money. What are the milestones so that we at least can start that conversation?
So-
A year, with it's next year, and at least 3 years.
So I don't want to speak out of turn. I mean, the big one, the first major milestone is them getting through the interconnect queue. And so they're at the head of that queue right now. And so they've got a January milestone to demonstrate control of this property, which gets them to the place where they can interconnect to the grid. That is, I mean, that's really where all of the focus is on this right now. Because if they can't connect to the grid, and if they can't bring this power onshore here and connect to the grid, then this offshore wind expansion is dead. I mean, because nobody's gonna make power that they can't bring onshore.
Is that
And-
good for Verizon, Dominion?
Yeah, yes, sir, and it's important to note that this project is currently ahead of Dominion in the queue, by a substantial margin. And so, in the event that they don't get control of real estate, in the interconnect queue, in the event that they can't show control of real estate for their substations, the ability to land the power, then they fall to the back of the queue. Now, we don't know what that means long-term for their project. They represent that it's a killer, though. But again, that would be, I mean, we'd have to get you more information on that. As it relates to the steps to initiate the project following them getting their interconnection permit, we'd have to come back to you with that, because quite frankly, that's just further than our own conversations have gone.
Good morning, Taylor. So just to clarify, because I've heard a lot about, the importance of AvenGrid staying in the queue. Is it relevant that they stay in the queue by holding on to this particular property? Or is it relevant that they show that they own or control any of the properties that were showed previously in their slide?
So, thank you, great question. So they looked at 16 sites in Virginia Beach, and interestingly enough, this is the only site that works for their landing. Now, one important thing to note about the difference in the two projects is, as we understand where they have to land, there is, just consider it a no-use zone in the Atlantic that the Navy controls. So based on where this is being built, the Virginia project has to come in north of Dam Neck. This project has to come in south of Dam Neck. And so that's where Sandbridge becomes the landing point for this. If you look at the run from Sandbridge inland, there are two things that we're dealing with there. One, there has to be a site that can accommodate this use. Two, and this is something that I had to get my own head around, and I don't want to play electrical engineer here, but where the power hits the grid is important that it hit the grid. And so apparently there's, and Randy, I may call on you in just a second, but there is and jump in if I get this wrong. There is, to avoid grid congestion, which basically too much power in one part of the grid, we have to, the grid has to enter, the power has to enter the grid at a place where there is capacity. So for that reason, if you look at everything south of Dam Neck, we're effectively left with one site that can accommodate this use, and it's this site in Corporate Landing, based on the fact that it's immediately adjacent to the transmission line that gets back to Lansdowne, that can then get them to Fentress and get them distributed throughout the Commonwealth. So I am speaking on behalf of what the developer and the company has represented to us. But based on their analysis that we have had a chance to look at and validate as best we could, this is the only site really that works.
But are they not willing to pay more than $20,000 a year?
So they are paying.
What I mean, that we would get.
So the 20,000 is non-refundable. They're also escrowing in effect 100,000 more than that each year, but that is escrowed. And so, but it's just basically to demonstrate, that they are still in the game while we go through this queue. I mean, that is really it. So it's 20,000 non-refundable and 100,000 escrowed per year for the 5 years of the initial term, and then we've got the renewal to talk about under the tighter conditions. I mean, and I would just caution you, if we don't do this, we will go wherever you send us. Just know that this is us saying no to this North Carolina renewable energy project. And it's not, if it's not right for you, it's not right for you, and we'll let the developer know. But this is, I mean, it has been represented to us that that if we can't get this done, and done on this timeline, it's a death knell for the project.
And the first offshore wind energy in the U.S.
And I think it's an exciting opportunity. We just want to make sure that we crossed all our Ts and dotted
That's
our
right.
Is, and we've
That's
done
right.
also the best thing. Couple of questions. So when it hits Sandbridge and it has to travel all the way to Corporate Landing, do we get any compensation for it using our right-of-way?
So this company is negotiating. I don't want to speak for the right-of-way team because they're not here, but separate from authority business, talking about city business, yes, this company is in conversation with the city attorney's office and with Public Works right-of-way agents on a franchise agreement.
And then the other thing, is I think that in the overall scheme of the enormity of this project, the $20,000, like Mrs. Wood said, is way too low. I mean, okay, they put 100,000 a year, but they get that back. But $20,000, if their skin in the game of loss, it seems pretty low to tie up this property.
Sure. So, and important to know on the 100,000, they would get that back in the event that we terminated. In the event that we move forward, that's credited towards the project. That becomes contribution to the 20,000 is yours to keep. But if you want us to tell if one of your conditions is that number is higher, we'll take it back to the developer.
I just think that 20,000 for the enormity of this project it's not a lot of skin in the game.
And I think, I mean, they still have, back to the 10 years, you know, at some point, if they're close, the other option obviously is to have it be a mutual agreement to renew or a shorter renewal period. But at some point, as Councilwoman Wood was saying, you know, if they really want it that bad, they can just buy the land. You know, we don't have to continue the option. And if they change their mind, they can sell the land to somebody else.
That's great.
And so we would say on the option that it is a mutually agreeable option in the event that they have not initiated construction. The only way that in 5 years, that's right. The only way that this automatically renews is if they are building this offshore wind facility, these facilities off the coast.
That's not what the agreement says now.
The
The agreement says now that they have to have submitted an application to the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management to move to the next stage. It doesn't say anything about milestones, to Mike's point, that they have to say after a year, hey, we've got our lease for our offshore wind, we're progressing to the next level, and here's the next milestone. And what they should have to show us that they've done before the end of that 5 year is they have to have submitted a complete application where they've done all the testing and they've checked all the boxes. It's not, oh yeah, we submitted an application that's half-baked.
So that's a miss on my part. That's an oversight on my part. It was always our intent that we would be moving towards execution of the project to automatically renew. No, so agree, an application's probably not sufficient there. That's an oversight on my part.
So you'll change that?
Of course we will. And I mean, obviously I think Alex and I both heard loud and clear that we need to tighten that piece. But no, that's a miss on my part. That should be a little more robust than that. Agree.
And I think that, and Alex and I communicated about this, I think the city needs a termination right if, you know, right now it doesn't say anything about them missing one of those payments or being late on a payment. You know, again, if they're not performing, then we shouldn't go into this automatic renewal period.
We agree.
Bill?
So it's a little bit off the corporate landing piece, but using the Nimmo right-of-way, of course, it's a future road for part of it that cuts right through the Back Bay Wildlife Refuge. There's a right-of-way there, I assume, I don't know the legalities of it, but
Yes.
have they cleared all the environmental hurdles that would be associated with running through that piece of land?
So I would have to have public works here to speak on that, you know, with any intelligence, but what I can tell you is, they'll have to satisfy public works to, I mean, so the right-of-way does exist as we understand it, but they'll have to satisfy the public works right-of-way team to be in that space, and I'm sure that would include environmental clearance.
And Bill, as part of that application for the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management to go to construction, they have to have checked all the environmental boxes.
Yes.
That's why if they have that complete application, it means they've done all of that homework and they're ready to put in a plan to construct.
This interior lot, is there any other people looking at this lot right now? So 5 years for the amount of investment, just to get this next 5 years to them is massive. I mean, it's huge. Put a stone milestone in 5 years and let's move on.
Got it, thank
Yeah.
you.
And just to be clear, they'll be subject to all of the, not only the current design guidelines of corporate landing, but the future.
Of course.
Because we don't have design guidelines for a substation.
We sure don't. And the other thing is, we know that there's, the reason we're talking about 30 acres here, we know that there's wetland impact here. There are residential uses on, sort of around this. So yeah, we're gonna need not only our design guidelines, but healthy buffering to protect the residential uses.
Could we wait until next month or no?
They
Too
will,
late?
if we don't go this month, they will lose their place in the queue.
You need a motion?
Yes, sir.
I'll move it as amended with
Okay, give me,
strong language about the extension of beyond the 5 years.
and what about the 20,000 a year, David?
Yeah.
Leave them the 20.
I'm sorry, what?
The 20 is like a spec for them compared to what they're putting in the market. I mean,
It's too little.
So yeah, the way it is now, they pay us $120,000 a year for the option. They get $100,000 a year back if they terminate, which means it's really a $20,000 a year option.
Which is,
Okay, guys, would somebody want to make another?
I think we're still talking about the option payment.
I wouldn't let it hold up this deal. I mean, I just,
You can't hold it up.
I mean, it's a very complicated project. I mean, do you have the numbers they've already spent out there surveying? It's they're probably a couple $100,000 a day spending right now.
It's,
nuts.
we don't have this total, but yeah, they're spending real money. We know that.
Right, and I think we need to move forward in good faith and not
Okay, we have a second to David's motion.
second.
Okay, all in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Well, thank you. It carried, but I'm sure that you're going to work with them and it's going to be tightened up.
And we'll come back, we'll obviously circulate the completed agreement prior to execution. So yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, prior to execution, we'll get you the update, we'll get you a completed copy of the agreement.
I'll work with Alex on it.
Figured you would, yeah.
How about that?
Okay, excuse me. Request for approval of the sale of 6 acres located in Virginia Beach Park at the intersection of Lansdowne and Winterberry for Why Not? Is that one?
Madam Chair,
Excited
good
about
morning,
having-
authority members, good morning. Before I begin, I'd like to introduce to some Tony DeSilvestro from Why Not and his wife Cindy.
Hi, thank you for coming. You know, you've done so much for the Sandler Center. We really appreciate you. Nick and I both work with the Sandler Center. Thank you. Right.
What I'd like to do now is go through the project description that we discussed last month. Before you now is the disclosures that we discussed for the project. Next is the project summary. They're planning to build 45,000 square feet here in the Innovation Park. Within that, it's going to be 10,000 square feet, which is going to house their corporate headquarters. But I think it's important to note within that 10,000 square feet, they're also going to have almost a semi-incubator whereby they're going to launch 2 small businesses within that. And beyond that, 35,000 square feet of that will be for medical space as well. So I think that's going to be a boom for that area. Next, I'd like to show you where it's going to land on Princess Anne Road in the Lansdowne area. That blue is the 6 acres that they're looking to purchase. These are the renderings of the building. And the request before you again is for us to approve the 6 acres at $300,000 per acre. Are there any questions?
Could you, it's not really a question, but I think you
Yes, ma'am.
shared with us in the closed session that
Uh-huh.
the investment in the corporate headquarters and what's gonna happen, the exciting things that are gonna happen with this company, I thought it would be helpful.
Oh, very good. Thank you very much. What they're planning to do, they're expanding now regionally. And I think it's important to note to have why not establish here in Virginia Beach is going to be a critical part for that innovation park and us as we grow. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anything else? Would you like to say a few words before we vote? We're just really happy to.
No, I mean, we're, so for us right now, our offices are spread out all over the place as restaurants are. So for us to have everything in one place is going to be amazing for us. We're getting ready to expand to Richmond, hopefully in 2020, and then to Raleigh, and then to Fairfax in Northern Virginia. So we're looking
Great.
to open at least 20.
We're proud of you.
So, thank you.
And if I could offer a quick
Yes, sir.
clarification for the public. So just so you know, this is the first building that'll come out of the ground in our innovation park. You all will remember there was an RFP that this body did for for the original biomedical lab space incubator that and it was proposed at that point the city would be leasing half of the space in that building. Just for clarification, this is not that project. The city is not proposing to lease space within this building for biomedical uses. This is purely for the location of Mr. DeSilvestro's corporate headquarters here in Virginia Beach, and we thought that was an important clarification to offer.
Thank you.
And I think to that point, just generally, we probably need to tighten the policy about what happens when we have an RFP and then we decide to go a different direction, or the conversation ends, or we move on to something else, a different use, so that the public knows, okay, that RFP was opened, it was, we entered into negotiations pursuant to the terms of a bid, but then we've closed out that particular opportunity, and then, so that people know, like, this company and others, that those opportunities are out there.
Agree, and would love to come back and talk about that, because also there is, a future conversation. It's very expensive for the private sector to respond to our solicitations. So one, I think there's an obligation for us to be perhaps a little more specific, a little more robust fiscal impact analysis for you all ahead of those on what we can and can't afford. But also, when we enter into this process, recognize that the money that's spent by the private sector is generally for studies and things that have real value to us, and I think there needs to be a means by which we can acquire some of that intellectual property, because I think it's real. One, I think it's important for us to make the private partner whole in the event that they're spending money that we're asking them to spend. But two, there's real value in having that documentation in our office. So we'd love to come back to you with more on that.
Anything else?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The next one is the Vibe 1701. What is that?
So that's the co-working space in.
Thank you so much. We're really happy to have you.
Thanks, everyone.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Madam Chair, authority members. I'm Emily Archer. I'm actually in the planning department, but I'm one of the original Vibe Committee grant members, so bringing this through to you today. Should be a super simple request from the other ones you've been hearing today, so happy holidays. This is a resubmission of a Vibe grant. But just out of the way, the owner of the company we're talking about is Lisa Denoy, Legal Services Joe Need, Navy Federal Credit Union for Lending Institution, and construction contractor Atlantic Glass and Mirror Company. So a lot of you know this company. It's our first co-working facility in the city of Virginia Beach, located at 1701 on Baltic Ave in the Vibe District. It's home to freelancer startups, anybody that needs a space to come to work. Work areas are available on daily rates, and conference rooms and multipurpose rooms can be rented on hourly basis. So the heart of it, this company was approved for initially approved for a Vibe District grant of $10,000 in March of 2018. They requested an extension and now have until March of 2020 to request reimbursement. But some of the original intended improvements have changed. They originally approved for new doors and windows to their space. The doors were completed, however, the windows were not, as space needs there evolved. They are now requesting reimbursement for new the doors themselves, flooring, interior murals, and the installation of telephone booths, which significantly expand their businesses. All the improvements have been completed. I've been there to see them. So you can see on the little picture what the doors used to look like, and the new glass doors, and the interior is a lot more accommodating with the natural light coming in. The new interior murals that they had, painted by a number of the entrepreneurs and artists that actually work in that space as well. New flooring to make it usable, and again, more telephone booths for a co-working space. It's really important to have that space to go make some phone calls. And it's increased their utilization of the space, made it more flexible for community events. It showcases more art and more resources for small businesses that are growing. Their capital investment total is about $21,000. We are recommending approval of the resubmitted application for the original $10,000, so the amount has not changed. It's just all scoping. And this is a key kind of anchor in the Vibe District. That's what I got.
Questions? Motion?
Move approval.
Second? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, our priorities, so we're happy to work. Vote, I'm sorry.
So, excuse me, sorry, just administratively, who was the second on that motion?
Hey, what, Mr. I thought it was you. What?
Let's try again.
Okay, we'll try again.
So I move
Lisa, and who was the second? Bill?
Sure.
What he said, yes. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's a really good thing to have. I'd like to introduce our newest member, Dr. Bill Brown from Sandbridge. We're happy to have you with us.
Thank you.
And I think that first time we've had someone, I believe, from Sandbridge, so we're happy to have you. Thank you. Any other? We had a very successful open house.
We did.
And Olivia and the staff did a fantastic job. It was, how many people would you say?
I think we had 172 confirmed.
Isn't that great? More than that were here, I think.
I think so, yeah, it was good.
Coming and going. Thank you all so much. Anyone else have anything to say before Taylor?
Just as an advance, next month, it's been a great, so I'll tell you, it's been a great year. We have some, we would tell you, exciting new metrics that we've built over the last 12 months. We have 11-month data. Obviously, we're in December. We'll close out the year where the metrics that we're using allow us to report a number of new things real time as it relates to the state of our local economy. Looking forward to coming back to you at the January meeting with an update on some of that, because it informs our annual report. I'll give you one piece of great information that'll be in, that we'll give you more on next month, but since it's an outside agency and not ours. Smart Asset is a New York-based company that does a great deal of local government research. City has, Patty Phillips, our past finance director, used them when she and I worked together, and so I am on there. I still get all of their information, but they're also quoted Wall Street Journal, Forbes, Fortune routinely. They just this last week published local government GDP growth, so basically county by county local government GDP growth. Happy to report that Virginia Beach had the second highest net GDP growth in the Commonwealth, second only to Fairfax. We're at 3.06%, which is well ahead of the national average, so a great story for our local economy. Something to send you into the holidays with.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. The chair will entertain a motion to recess into closed session pursuant to the exemptions from open meeting allowed by section 2.2-3711A Code of Virginia as amended for the following purpose. Publicly held property. Discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real property for a public purpose, or the disposition of publicly held real property where discussion in open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A3. A prospective business or industry. Discussion concerning a prospective business or industry or the expansion of an existing business where no previous announcement has been made of the interest in locating or expanding its facilities to the community pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A5. Contracts. Discussion of the award of a public contract involving the expenditures of public funds, including interviews of bidders and discussion of the terms of the scope of such contract, where discussion in open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body pursuant to 2.2-3711A30. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Then you're gonna call-
David Byrne,
Yes.
William Brown, William Brumke,
Yes.
Nika Chizor,
Yes.
Taylor Franklin,
Yes.
Penny Morgan,
Yes.
Lisa Murphy,
Yes.
Mike Standing, Joe Strange,
Yes.
Scott Wood.
Yes.